Welcome to The Debate. Today, we're diving into something quite specific. The dynamics within a unique global organization, ONPASSIVE, and its founder community. We're looking at it through the lens of the CEO's birthday celebration.
That's right. Our source material, Ash Mufareh's Birthday, a turning point for ONPASSIVE founders, really digs into this. It suggests that for Ash Mufareh, the CEO, and for ONPASSIVE, which is building this big AI-powered digital ecosystem for entrepreneurs, this isn't just a birthday. It's a significant event for their founders, who are essentially the early adopters, the core community.
Exactly. And the celebration seems to carry a lot of weight, which brings us to our central question today. Is this birthday primarily a moment meant to, reinforce the positive vision, build unity, and maybe push strategic growth for ONPASSIVE? Or should it be seen mainly as a critical point, a time for the founder community to really address operational issues, demand accountability, and push for more transparency?
It's a definite tension.
It is. I'll be arguing that this birthday serves first and foremost as a powerful catalyst for positive momentum and renewed collective purpose.
And I'll be presenting the perspective that actually, a milestone like this is perhaps the ideal time for critical reflection, for tackling challenges head-on, and really upholding accountability within the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so let's lay out the positions. From my perspective, the source material makes it pretty clear. Ash Mufareh's birthday, it's not just presented as a personal thing. It's strategically framed. It's a pivotal moment for these ONPASSIVE founders, designed to spark renewed energy and commitment. What's interesting is how the source talks about its symbolic power, a deliberate moment to pause, reflect, celebrate what's been achieved, yes, but also to renew purpose and, crucially, reinvigorate the shared mission. Mufareh is positioned as this architectural force behind a new ecosystem, that unified AI infrastructure they're building. The celebration itself, the text argues, strengthens the community emotionally, psychologically. It talks about inspiring and affirmation, creating a sense of belonging like a global family and rekindling purpose. And then there are the more tangible aspects: community synergy through events, strategic opportunities like making key announcements and roadmaps, mentorship programs, even charitable campaigns. The piece in thevoicenews.net mentions appeals for philanthropy. So ultimately, it's presented as this springboard for renewed energy for product delivery and a stronger global community, building what they call a living legacy. It's about forward momentum fueled by positivity.
Okay, I understand the appeal of that framing. Focusing on unity, renewed purpose, that makes sense on the surface. However, the very same source material, the one you're quoting, also explicitly pushes for something more critical, more reflective from the founders. What really jumps out at me is this quote: "Celebration isn't just about the positive, it's also a moment to acknowledge challenges, legal or operational, and to recommit to continuous improvement, compliance, communication, product delivery." Now, that's quite direct, isn't it? It even gets specific. It says founders who are aware of, say, regulatory scrutiny, and it mentions the SEC, which is, that's significant, hinting at potential challenges to the whole model, impacting trust, the promise of earnings, or aware of delayed product delivery. These founders should use the day to advocate for transparency, renewal of trust, and collective action. Now, that feels like it goes way beyond just inspiration. It's a call to action. Founders are urged to hold the ecosystem accountable, and they're given specific questions to ask. Are we building what was promised? Are products functioning? Are earnings lawful and deserved? Are we transparent? The tough questions. And if there's misinformation or unfulfilled promises, the advice is to champion integrity and community trust, and petition for clarity or corrections. So from my reading, this suggests the birthday, rather than just being a party, should primarily function as a moment for, let's say, rigorous introspection and demanding accountability.
Right. So it really does seem like our core disagreement is about the primary utility of this milestone for the ONPASSIVE founders. You're emphasizing the critical reflection aspect, which, Yes, it's definitely in the source material. My concern, though, is that if you prioritize critique during what's framed as this unique, symbolic moment of unity, well, don't you risk kind of stifling the very positive momentum and unity the celebration is trying to build, especially for a strategic growth? The source, as I mentioned, really highlights how the birthday generates renewed energy and unity. It talks about founders being able to reassess goals and align with vision, making renewed commitments to excellence. Psychologically, think about it. A shared moment of celebration, of pride, can often open doors for constructive feedback in a way that a formal, perhaps more adversarial review might not. This collective motivation, boosted by that sense of belonging, amplified through social media globally, that seems like something you can strategically harness for real results, like those announcements and roadmaps, or even innovation sprints. This positive energy, I'd argue, is just crucial for pushing forward that big vision of automation and AI solutions.
I hear you on needing positive energy, but I guess I question whether focusing only on that unity and positive reinforcement truly serves the founder's best interests in the long run. Particularly when, as we've both noted, the source itself flags challenges, legal or operational, and even potential regulatory scrutiny from the SEC. I mean, what's the actual value of renewed energy if it isn't grounded in, well, in reality, if it's not coupled with some honest, critical reflection? The text, as I pointed out, gives founders clear responsibilities. It says they should hold the ecosystem accountable. It's not just a suggestion for leadership. It seems positioned as a duty for the founders. And think about this. Channeling energy into, say, charitable or outreach campaigns, which the source mentions, and you highlighted, while that's good, does it maybe risk diverting focus away from potentially more pressing internal issues? Like those unfulfilled promises the text brings up? The source says credibility and visibility are boosted only if celebrations are paired with substance. So my point isn't anti-celebration at all. It's about priority. When the whole community's attention is focused, is the main goal just cheering, or is it maybe time for a bit of a reality check to ensure the foundation is solid?
Okay, I absolutely concede the importance of addressing challenges. Substance is crucial, no argument there. But the source material also suggests, doesn't it, that the particular spirit of generosity and gratitude around a birthday can be actively leveraged to create a constructive space for co-creation with leadership, identifying improvements, offering suggestions, even getting people to volunteer for task forces. So my counter question is, isn't there a risk that if the primary focus becomes demanding accountability right in the middle of a celebration, the founders might inadvertently, alienate the leadership or diminish that very spirit of generosity the source itself suggests could lead to productive solutions? I'm arguing that positive momentum, that goodwill, can actually be the engine that drives renewed energy for product delivery. It can turn promises into reality, perhaps more effectively than an approach that feels primarily critical or demanding right out of the gate. It's about using the existing positive sentiment as a starting point for change.
That's a fair point about leveraging goodwill, but let me push back slightly. You talk about co-creation and volunteering. Aren't those activities only truly effective, truly meaningful if they're built on a solid foundation of transparency and trust? Especially, again, when the source itself explicitly brings up the possibility of misinformation or unfulfilled promises. If the text implies, through phrases like leadership reflection, that trust might actually need re-anchoring, its words, not mine, then isn't demanding that clarity, ensuring that trust is re-anchored, actually a prerequisite for any genuine collaborative momentum, rather than something that detracts from it? It seems to me like you need to check the foundation before you start building higher, right? So maybe the founder's key role during this turning point has to include that proactive push for clarity, for resolution of outstanding issues.
Because without that solid base, any collaborative efforts, however energetic, might just be, built on shaky ground.
I can appreciate that viewpoint. The absolute necessity for clarity and trust. Yes, that's fundamental for any community, any organization to really thrive.
Exactly. You can't build momentum on uncertainty.
So we've definitely explored this tension around Ash Mufareh's birthday. On one hand, Is it primarily this moment for ONPASSIVE founders to rally around the positive vision, strengthen unity? Or, on the other hand, is it the critical juncture to pause, address the tough stuff, and demand accountability and transparency? I've leaned into the symbolic power, arguing that the inspiration, the renewed purpose, the community bonding, these create strategic opportunities for growth, drawing on how the source emphasizes the positive emotional impact and visionary aspects. That energy, I feel, is presented as crucial for driving ONPASSIVE forward.
And I focused more on what the source suggests are the responsibilities of the founders themselves in that moment. To engage critically, pointing to those specific mentions of challenges, legal or operational, the regulatory scrutiny context, and that explicit call to hold the ecosystem accountable for product delivery, for integrity, for dealing with any misinformation or unfulfilled promises. My perspective is that, yes, celebrate, but use that collective focus to ensure the foundations are solid. That true progress, lasting credibility, really requires that transparent engagement with difficulties first.
It seems the source material itself holds both possibilities, doesn't it? Celebration and critical reflection are both acknowledged as part of this milestone. It really leaves us and perhaps our listeners to weigh where the primary emphasis should lie. Do you harness the collective enthusiasm mainly for forward momentum?
Or do you use that moment of unity, perhaps uniquely, to demand the clarity and accountability needed from leadership and the ecosystem to ensure that momentum is sustainable and built on trust? It's definitely a fascinating dynamic, that interplay between, the aspirational vision and the practical, sometimes difficult realities of building something complex.
Indeed. There's clearly more to explore in how communities navigate that balance between celebration and responsibility.
Okay, so when you think birthday, you probably think cake, presents, the usual stuff, right? Well, what if a birthday could be something bigger, like a company's most important strategic event of the year? That's exactly what we're digging into today, how one global community takes its CEO's birthday and turns it into this massive, powerful tool to push their mission forward. And really, it all comes down to this one big question. How in the world does a personal celebration become a strategic milestone for a global community? We're going to break down how they take what's normally a simple event and just transform it into an engine for renewing purpose, strengthening belief, and sparking action all over the planet. All right, let's get right into it. The first thing you have to wrap your head around is that for this community, a birthday is, well, it's not just a birthday. It's way, way more than that. So this whole event is basically framed as having some serious symbolic power. I mean, forget the cake and candles for a second. Think of it more like a strategic timeout. It's a moment for the entire community, all at once, to just pause, reflect, realign with our goals, and get totally re-energized for the mission ahead. So you're probably wondering, who is this leader, and what's the company at the very center of all this? The company is called ONPASSIVE, and from what we can see, it's a seriously ambitious project. They're creating this whole ecosystem of AI-powered tools. The grand vision here? To build a brand new digital infrastructure that could totally change the game for how entrepreneurs do business. So this all kicked off back in 2018, and in the years since, it's ballooned into this global community of members they call founders. These are the people who have really bought into this big vision of a future that's completely powered by integrated AI. And the CEO's leadership? It's really positioned as the engine behind everything. There's this one quote that says it all. It symbolizes boldness and audacity. It's that belief in his vision that seems to be the glue holding it all together, convincing the whole community that, yeah, this huge technological shift is actually possible. Okay, so how does a party actually do all that? How does it create this incredible sense of unity? Well, it all comes down to the impact it has on the community members, those founders we mentioned. First off, you gotta understand the sheer scale of this thing. We are not talking about a little office party with a sheet cake. This is a massive global network of founders. We're talking people in Dubai, in India, across Africa, and the Americas. So the celebration acts as this one single unifying event for everyone, everywhere. And this is where it gets really fascinating, psychologically speaking. The event is literally described as an affirmation of belief. Think about that. It's a dedicated moment to double down, to reinforce everyone's faith in the vision, and to remind every single founder, hey, This is why you signed on to this crazy ambitious project in the first place. You know, these celebrations are also very cleverly designed to build real, powerful emotional bonds. They have these rituals like everyone sharing messages and making videos. It all works to make members feel like they're part of a global family. It's a powerful way to make sure nobody feels like they're in this alone.
But wait, it's not all just feel-good celebrations. This is where it gets really interesting. This moment is also used to look at the tough stuff, to confront real-world challenges head-on. So yeah, it all kicks off by getting everyone grounded in that core belief, that shared vision. But then
It takes a hard pivot. The celebration is also a time to openly acknowledge the really difficult things, the legal and operational hurdles the company is actually up against. And we're not talking about vague problems here. This reflection gets into specific, really serious challenges. For example, the source notes that founders are aware of regulatory scrutiny from groups like the SEC. So the birthday becomes this moment to face those realities together, out in the open. And all of this leads to a pretty powerful call to action. It's basically saying, okay, founders, your job goes way beyond just believing. They're being pushed to turn that inspiration into actual daily action, to hold the ecosystem accountable, to be the guardians of the community's integrity, and to jump in and help co-create its future. So you combine all this belief with this new sense of accountability. Where does that lead? Well, let's talk about the future. This is where that birthday celebration transforms into a genuine launchpad for action. It's not just a party. It's a strategic moment they use to roll out product announcements, kick off mentorship programs, launch charity campaigns, and even host technical events like hackathons. It's all happening. And look, if they can actually harness all that energy in the right way, the potential payoffs are huge. We're talking about renewed energy to get products out the door, a much more tight-knit global community, a better public image, and a real chance for the leadership to solidify that trust. And this really brings us to the absolute core of it all. The celebration itself isn't the point. Its real power is in what happens after the party's over. It's designed to be a springboard, to launch the entire community into this next phase of focused, inspired action. So that leaves us with one final, pretty big thought to chew on. What we've looked at here is a powerful model for building a community, one that's built on a massive vision. It makes you ask a really crucial question. When a community is fueled almost entirely by belief, what's the glue that actually holds it all together? Is it just the inspiration? Is it the execution of the plan? Or is it something deeper, the shared responsibility that every single member of that community carries?